Hey guys. All right. Today, what's going on? Today we are talking about how to have the hard conversation. That conversation that you really don't want to have. Maybe there's a relationship that you're dissatisfied with in your life. Maybe it's with your significant other. Maybe you guys are feeling a bit disconnected. You're not feeling heard. You're feeling neglected. Yeah, you wanna be more intimate. Maybe it's with your friend or your brother, your sister, or maybe it's with your mom or your dad. Maybe it's with a boss or a manager in the workplace. Maybe you're feeling like, there's some conflict there, or you're wanting, more work-life balance, whatever it is, right? Maybe there's just a relationship right now that you're not entirely satisfied with. And what do you do about it? There's a couple of things. I think a lot of ways to deal could be, being very passive aggressive, making snide remarks and, little comments here and there. Or you could you could lash out and overtly say things that are emotional and maybe hurtful, and just speaking from that place of raw emotion. You can repress your emotions and kind of maybe ignore the feelings and sort of pretend like everything's all good and silently suffering inside. You just avoid everything altogether. But does any of that ever really solve anything? Right? Having the hard conversation, that's why I say it's having the hard conversation. It's never easy to have these conversations, but it's usually important and necessary, especially if it's something that's kind of been brewing for a while. Just in my own experience, my partner and I, we've been together for 5 years, and I would say for the most part, we have a pretty good communication. We don't really fight per se. But what I have noticed is more of like, I'm the one that's like, let's talk about things, and he's just sort of more passive, let things float on kind of thing. But lately, it kind of gets to a point sometimes when you're needing to have the hard conversation and you're not, and things are brewing. Like for us, I think we've both been feeling really disconnected from each other. We're pretty independent, but it's been more so like keeping to ourselves, and sort of withdrawing physically from each other, and like in the intimacy aspect. And it's led me to have thoughts about, possibly breaking up, thinking about what it'd be like to date other people. And there was this night last week, I think it was, where I was sitting on the couch, I was watching TV, I was watching a show that I loved, The Good Place, and he comes through the door. He was out, he had a class, and he came home, and obviously, he said hi to me and whatnot. But he went to the kitchen, he was making some food. And as soon as he was done making the food, he walked past the living room into the other room, where he proceeded to eat his meal and watch his show. And, he was just unwinding. It was really the end of the night. But I was like, why I wanted him to come hang out with me, unwind with me on the couch in the living room in our shared space, and knew we can watch a show together. And looking back now, I could have said, hey, let's watch the show, or if you want to watch a different show, let's come hang out. But I didn't. I let him just kind of do his thing. But internally, I was annoyed. I was kind of sad. I was a little confused, and I just felt very separated and kind of hurt. But I went on to watch my show, and he was doing his thing. And as we're getting ready for bed, when I get in that space, and maybe some of you are like this, where you're a little bit, you're holding on to something, and he was being affectionate, and I was sort of withdrawn, and I was just not wanting to I was not interested in his affection. And I kind of lashed out, and I was like, basically, why don't you just come sit with me in the living room? Like, why are you in the other room? Like, this is what I mean when I say we're disconnected. And this is like what it feels like. We're like roommates, instead of, in a relationship with one another. And I just really like lashed out, and he got defensive because I was lashing out at him, and he kind of shared his side of the story, which was like, I just thought you were watching your show and you were doing your thing. And like, I didn't want to bother you while you were watching your show that you really like. And, he shares whatever it is that he was saying, but we both went to bed still feeling very discontent. And I realized, I'd been harboring that discontentness and that dissatisfaction with our relationship because it had been brewing. And I've been overwhelmed, especially in the past week prior to that, with the uncertainty about the relationship, not feeling close, not feeling connected, and thinking about breaking up and all these things. And it, in that moment, just sort of exploded out of me. And the next day, and I lashed out, right? And the next day, I didn't want to, but I knew I needed to. And he came home, and I was like, how am I gonna approach this conversation in a way that is not attacking, and I think I asked him, I started with a question. I think I asked him how he felt about a relationship. I don't remember exactly what I asked him, but it sort of opened the conversation a bit. I asked him, what were those 3 things that that mattered most to him in a partner, and having that in a partner. And when he told me those 3 things, I asked, like, do you feel like that I am those things for you? And what I did was I kind of allowed him, without being defensive and attacking, I just asked questions to kind of open him up a little bit. And then I found an in to open up the conversation, and ended up sharing with him all the feelings that I've been feeling. And turns out he'd been on the same page. And we basically decided, like, hey, like, maybe it's best, like, should we break up? Either we break up now, or we commit to really resolving this, and seeing if, we try something to see if, we'd rather try and see if this doesn't work, or if it does work, at least try before you throw it all away. And so we agreed to find a therapist and find someone to kind of help us. And since then, just even having that conversation, like, we haven't even started therapy yet. We just found the person that we're going to work with. But even just having that conversation brought us closer. And instead of him continuing to be passive aggressive and me lashing out, and continuing for us to harbor and build, harbor these emotions and build bitterness and resentment towards one another until it really exploded, or got to the point where it was too far beyond repairing, or to the point where we didn't even care anymore to do anything about it. To have that conversation, to have that hard conversation, which isn't necessary. I mean, it wasn't easy, but necessary. And so I think when we're approaching these hard conversations, there's a couple of things that are really important to be aware of, whether you're having this conversation with your significant other, or your mom, your dad, your boss, whoever it is, right? I think number 1 is first, like, make sure you spend a little bit of time reflecting and thinking about what it is that is coming up for you, what it is you're having an issue with, what is it that you kind of want to address, and how are you feeling about it, and also, like, maybe how you've kind of also contributed to that, right? And then I think the second thing is to be very calm and open and vulnerable. When we're having these hard conversations, this is not the time to shy away from really expressing how you really feel. It's actually the perfect time to now allow yourself to use your voice and share how you're feeling, and be honest about that, and honest in a way that is firm but kind, so that would, because we need to be careful, like, when we're expressing ourselves, we want the conversation to stay open on both sides, so we can have a productive conversation, instead of saying things that are going to be harmful and cause someone to put up their defenses. You know, we want it to be a productive conversation. So having said that, it's not to be careful not to blame, right? To avoid, you know, using the you always, you never, you know, those sort of I forget what the word is, but like you always do this and you never do that. And to instead say things like, no, in my opinion, you know, in my opinion, or from what I've seen, what I've noticed, or, you know, just like how I've been feeling is, and really being able to take responsibility, take ownership, you know, and communicate in a way that you understand that this is a interaction and this isn't just a one-sided you getting to just vomit all over somebody and expect them to just take it, right? This is a two-way street, and you're taking ownership and understanding and taking responsibility of how you've contributed to the situation, how you'd like to move forward, and also being respectful of their opinion as well, right? And giving people that space to talk, you know, being patient and actually listening, not just thinking about what you're going to say next, but being really patient when you're feeling the emotions start to rise in you as what they're saying is triggering you, to remember to breathe, stay calm, and that is so important, right? Because when we're calm and when we're breathing, we have full access to our resources, to our faculties, we can think straight, right? And again, have that more productive conversation. And then I think the last thing is to be compassionate. To be compassionate and try to put yourself in the position of the other person, sort of try to see things through their lens. Because that way you get a fuller understanding of the situation, and you get to have a different perspective, which might inform your decisions and your actions in a different way had you not had that perspective. So ultimately, you know, have those hard conversations. Don't shy away. Understand that good communication is so important. Without being able to learn how to communicate in a way that's effective and productive and honest, we tend to hold on to things, repress emotions, and really suffer internally and quietly a lot of times, or outwardly explode and then suffer as a result of that. And so be willing to have the tough conversations, and understand that it's a necessary part of any relationship, and that, you know, by being able to push through and have those conversations, that on the other side is connection, and even if it's a really hard and difficult outcome that you weren't expecting or wanting, that at least you had that conversation to get to the other side, and you're not sitting there worrying or thinking about things. Like, you have answers now and you can move forward from there. Okay, so that's what it is. Go out and have that hard conversation, and that's what you need to do. And I will see you guys later.